Okay. Want to see if anybody's out there. Hmm. Crazy clicky noise. All right, I want to see if anybody jumps on here. And if you guys can hear me, because that's really important. Required value. Hmm. Oh no, I think the comment bar isn't working. Hold on, guys. I'm going to try and fix it really quickly. Bear with me. The audio hopefully is working. Um, it's not one thing, it's something else. Here we go. Hold on, I know what I need to do. It's just being a pain. Well, hopefully I'm stalling enough so we can get enough, a couple more people on here. Guys, I think that we are in business. Okay. Oh, boom. Wait, required missing value. This is driving me crazy. All right. If you are on here and you can't comment in this bar, could you do me a favor and message me on Facebook really quick? And just let me know that you can hear me, right? That you can hear me, that the video's playing. You might have to refresh the page, and we can get rock and rolling in a minute or two. Ah, there we go. I got a message. Yes, Taylor. Taylor is here. All right, awesome. Great. Sorry, guys. It's always one thing or another. All right. Here we go. Let's rock and roll. Are you guys excited? I'm excited and I'm a little nervous, but that's okay. All right, hopefully, I think the comment bar is working now. So you should be able to comment in there. Let everybody know where you're from, right? Your name. And then if you have anything that comes up or anything that you want to share, definitely do that, right? And we can get rocking and rolling. This is super exciting. Okay. So, I'm super, super excited, guys, that you took time out of your day or your night, right? It's night now. To learn why eating less and exercising more is keeping you fat, especially if you're a woman. And these are things that, you're not really going to hear from general fitness people or fitness professionals, but I'm really, really excited to share this because it's sabotaging people and it's making us feel like failures, right? So I'm sure you're betting that, I'm going to come on here and make some big promise, like a lot of other like internet fitness scallywags do. But that isn't my goal, right? My goal is that you will learn the steps and the strategies and why doing more and, eating less is actually causing you not to get the shape that you want in your body and not be able to, even if you get it, right, sustain it for the long time. So yeah, you might see some results. You might just see 5 pounds in 2 weeks or 10 inches in 8 weeks, like a lot of people have done my program before. But I want you to focus on shape. I want you to focus more on how you feel, right? Are your hormones in check? Is the change you're making sustainable? And does it feel good for your lifestyle? Because if it doesn't, it's not going to stick, right? And then I also want to tell you why the scale, it can be a real pain, right? And why, maybe 5 pounds would only say it on the scale, 5 pounds, but really your body and your shape would look completely different. So before we get into the good stuff, before we get into the meat and potatoes, I have a lot of information and I'm hoping it won't take super long. I want to keep it at about 30 minutes. I just want to ask you to grab a pen and paper or use that comment bar to write anything that comes up for you, any little tips or any light bulbs that goes off, any questions. And also, I know we are the queens of having a lot of stuff going on and multitasking. So I know you're serious about learning maybe one little thing that can help you propel your results and propel you towards the next level of where you want to go. So try to limit or turn those distractions off, right? Because it's only going to be about 30 minutes, okay? So if you stay until the end, these are the things that we're going to cover, right? You're going to learn exactly why eating less and exercising more is just working against you and making you fatter in the long run. Why hormones and balancing your metabolism is the better, more sustainable way for fat loss, especially when you're thinking about long-term success and in the long-term scheme of things. And the 3 biggest factors that make up, right, the minimum effective dose paradigm, which I'm going to share with you, which is the fastest way, even though it sounds counterintuitive, right, to go slower, to go faster in the long run. And then, of course, this is the system that I've built and I've used with hundreds of busy women, not just in person, but recently online, and I'll share with you why. And they've been able to lose about 10 inches in 8 weeks is the average result permanently. And I'll share some of their stories with you as well. Sorry, always a little bit nervous on these. All right, so I'm Courtney. A lot of you guys probably already know me if you've worked with me before. Actually, skin to skin, or maybe we're just kind of internet friends and we're getting to know each other. But my passion is to help women feel most confident about them, right? This training, nutrition, the mindset, all those are just tools to help me not just change the physical, but how people show up in the world, right? Especially women, because I want them to like who they are inside and out. And I know that we can be powerhouses, and this is my way of making the world a better place by making people happier, because I feel once they are happier, they make better decisions, they're kinder, and like I said, the world's a better place because of it. So I've dedicated all of my, I call it volunteer education that I've paid for, right, that I've sought out, spent time doing, not being made to do, learning just how to do that. But see, this stuff, to me doesn't really matter, because you can learn stuff in textbooks and research, but I'll share with you why sometimes that's flawed, and especially when it comes to reshaping a woman's figure. But listen, all those fancy credentials, I felt like a fraud and like a failure for a really, really long time. Because honestly, I'm nothing special. I struggled with my body, which affected my confidence, my self-worth, my self-esteem, and I was constantly like fluxing with my weight, going up and down, and always pinning my self-worth and, being a trainer or whatever it was, basically my self-worth to my body and to my weight. And it was this downward spiral. Because growing up, I wasn't fit, I wasn't athletic, I didn't look like the other girls who got a lot of attention and had a lot of friends. And, I didn't find sports, which kind of changed the trajectory of my life until about high school. And even as I began to make that change, and even as I began to make the change more seriously as I pursued it in college, I was never able to stick with diet plans, because now looking back, they're either too crazy or too restrictive, right? We're talking about the grapefruit. I tried the soup diet. I tried just eating all vegetables. I tried going vegan, right? So naturally, I thought that I was no good at that, right? That this problem must be my fault. Like, why can't I white knuckle and willpower my way through these diet plans that I see all these, people getting incredible results for? And because I sucked at that, I tried overcompensating with training, because I would have these cravings. I would be hungry all the time. I just wouldn't be able to control myself almost. And so I'd buy these hardcore training programs from physique models that you find on Instagram. And honestly, they just made me feel worse. They made me look worse. They made me hangrier. They made me crave more food. They honestly crushed my motivation to train. And training is one of, the things that makes me the happiest. But because I was in this zone, it literally took the wind out of my sails, right? And it even got me injured, because my body wasn't ready for that type of training. And honestly, I find it hard to believe that those people even train like that now, right? I don't know if that's exactly how they train to look the way that they do. But this all led me to being completely over it. I gave up working out for pretty much a year, almost a year. And during this time, right, I had waved the white flag. I was like, dude, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. This is exhausting. I'm getting nowhere. I'm trying everything. I'm starving. I'm training 24/7. I used to train for 3 hours a day. I'd go to practice, and then I'd run on the treadmill, and it would just be absurd. But towards the end of that, towards the end of just completely giving up, I began to move again, and I began to just, lift weights because I enjoyed it and it made me fun, and I just kind of felt like I wanted to, and I wasn't chasing a goal. And I wasn't going after fat loss. And that's when my mindset started to change. And that's when my approach started to change, because now I started listening to my body. And I didn't know it at the time, right? But this more relaxed approach was changing my body. And I was getting comments on how I looked, right? People were noticing that I was changing. And then eventually it helped change my life, because I, continue to help other people with this now. So during that time, when I started getting back into training again, but for no reason, right? I had no goals. I was just this makes me feel good. I'm going to listen to my body. I was training my first small group training group at a local club by my house, and it was all full of women. And they were my core 5 people. And I would hear them every Saturday and every Wednesday when I would coach them, basically telling me everything that I struggle with. So I took a leap and I started sharing with them what I was doing, and it worked. And organically, this information turned into a program, which turned into something that I ran in-house, and now has kind of moved on to an online setting so that, I could help anyone that feels like they're in this place now. So I've done a lot of stuff wrong, right? I spent years fighting my body. I spent money I didn't have on like diet pills, on, laser lipo, which doesn't work, right? This is how desperate I was. And it never gave me lasting results, but what it did do, besides help me do the important things right, but it did make me feel frustrated. It made me feel like a failure, and I was seriously like ashamed of myself, because here I am, right? Not only am I spending a lot of money, I'm doing all this crazy work, but I'm supposed to know how to change my body, right? How can I help somebody else? And I began to believe that I must have been the problem, right? Because I was doing what all the textbooks and all that knowledge that I talked about earlier, but shouldn't it be working, right? So that kind of led me to discover the things, the important things right, doing those things right, and that I wasn't the problem, right? That the typical advice given by most fitness professionals was. So this is Michelle. I bet you Michelle is on this call right now. But Michelle was just like me. She was in a very similar situation. She had the mindset where, she felt like she was eating better and better and better, but her body just wasn't changing. So she was trying to overcompensate with working out more and more and more, right? And she had lost a significant amount of weight coming to the Blackburn Training Center, which is where she did all of her training for this nutritional course and program. But for the 2 years before she did it, she was getting frustrated because she's like, I'm in this plateau, right? I can't make this change. And that was her on the left. And together, we worked to change her relationship with food, right? Losing the guilt, strategically placing, the free meal so that she didn't feel left out and that she couldn't do the things that she loved that fulfilled her life. And prioritizing the most important thing, which was training. And in 8 weeks, she lost 12 pounds and 10 inches, which, sometimes you hear those numbers and people aren't that impressed unless it's like 30 pounds in 6 weeks. But when you look right at her shape, it's insanely different, right? Her torso is so much leaner, her arm is so much leaner. She got like more toned, and that's exactly what she was looking for. And it was so funny because we were out to dinner recently. She's going to kill me for sharing this, but we were joking about how her husband is always like shaking her at night, like, are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Because she looks so good now, right? So the 3 things that I want to go over in this, my goal is to show you how your metabolism actually works and kind of break down why the eat less, exercise more paradigm doesn't work for people. To balance your hormones, that's the second piece, why we want to go from that approach, because we want to balance the hormones that drive your metabolism, and how exactly you'll know if you're on track. And then the last thing I want to go over is how to do less to see more results. And this is kind of the practical stuff. There's practical stuff in the hormone stuff too, but this is the practical stuff that you can start to implement right away. So first thing, we're talking about how your metabolism actually works. And before we kind of get into the framework, the other stuff, you kind of have to understand this first and why this approach, we're taking it from here. See, most people believe that their bodies are like calculators, right? And it's because of the eat less, exercise more mantra that we tell ourselves, because it teaches you or it tells you that your body should be a calculator. That if you type in or punch in the right numbers and you punch out enough calories that, it'll just spit out your weight loss utopia, right? That you'll be in this beautiful place, you'll have the best body and all this stuff. And we could probably all agree that that's kind of BS, right? Because our metabolism is not linear, right? It's not predictable, and it doesn't always function stably. I don't know if that's quite a word, but it doesn't function like people want it to when they say that your metabolism is like a calculator, right? That all you need to do is get the numbers right. See, you are an organism fighting to survive, right? At the primal level, you are an organism. But not only that is your body trying to survive, it's also us women are meant to carry and, grow children within our bodies. So this puts us under this double kind of edge, because this means our body not only wants to make sure we have enough fat to keep us alive, but make sure we have enough fat on our bodies so that we would be able to bear children, right, and be able to get pregnant at some point. So that's its main priority, right, to keep us alive and possibly that baby as well. And this is why our hormonal functions different than a man, and duh, We know that, right? We already know we're different than a guy. But most studies, and this is the big thing, most studies and research done out there about fat loss is done on men, right? So the advice that's given by most fitness professionals and most people out there is stuff that works for men, but isn't tailored for women and our unique hormonal structure. And you might be able to relate to this, right? Let me know if you can in that comment box, because you probably have tried, maybe you and your husband or you and your boyfriend or you and your brother or some other, male friend try to lose weight together, and you did exactly the same thing, but they end up losing 20 pounds and you only lose like 2 or you only lose 5. And you're like, what the heck? Like, this is the worst thing ever, right? It's so frustrating. And what ends up happening when you do the typical eat less, exercise more, is that you're playing this tug of war against your metabolism, okay? Your metabolism, remember, it's an organism, so it's always seeking survival, hence it's always seeking homeostasis and balance. So when you push too far against it, and I'm specifically talking about fat loss here because that's, most of what women are after, it pushes back against you, right? Harder. And there is no way you're ever going to win against your metabolism and the things that it changes to compensate and to push against you with willpower and white knuckling it alone, right? Because it's going to give you unstable energy. It's going to increase your hunger. It's going to increase your cravings, right? Hopefully not hopefully, because I don't want you to experience this, but that might sound familiar where you've started training a whole lot more and you're super hungry, or you stop eating as much and you're hungry or you're craving different foods. And this is why this is what happens when we employ that model, right? It kind of backfires. But when you do this long enough and you do this hard enough, which most women do all of their lives, like I remember being very aware of my weight at like 7 years old and like putting myself in my head on a diet, right? So I've been on a chronic diet since I was 7 years old till I was about 24, right? 24, 25. And when you do this hard enough and long enough, your metabolism ends up compensating. So instead of playing tug of war, it just ties the rope to a metal pole, like a steel pole, flagpole, and it does this by changing completely your hunger, changing your hormones, changing your cravings, right? And those two things are, your hunger and your cravings are linked back to your hormones, and slowing down your metabolism. And studies have found, right, studies actually done on women, that it'll slow your metabolism up to 25%, right? Because you're either losing muscle or because it's kind of making you move less, right? Your motivation goes down, right? And the hormone outputs just get all jacked up. And this is kind of where, even if you see a little bit of success in the front, in the beginning, where a lot of the rebounding and the yo-yo starts to happen. So the process that most women do, right? This is, we're not eating a lot, we're starving ourselves, we're doing long drawn out cardio because we're convinced from, media ever since that whole craze came about that that's the only way that you burn fat is you gotta stay in the fat burning zone. We're either doing that or we're overtraining, or we're doing both, right, with high intensity interval training or even strength training. We're training in the wrong ways for our bodies, and we're putting too much on our plate, right? On top of the busy lifestyles that we lead, taking care of people, running our families, all this different stuff, we're now trying to add an extremely restrictive diet or an unrealistic training program, and this is just making everything worse. And I see this all the time, right? I see this almost every day, and it breaks my heart. And literally, I want you guys to drop the rope, right? Stop playing tug of war, because it's something that you're never going to win, right? Beat your metabolism at its own game requires you to be curious, to be mindful, to be diligent, to have the patience to explore your own body and to listen to the feedback, because your body wants to be in homeostasis, right? It wants your hormones and your metabolism to be balanced so that you can have a lot of energy and all of those great things, and even see fat loss, but you have to approach it from that metabolic balanced hormones approach first, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So balancing your hormones is key, right? Because hormones are going to drive your metabolism. And this is all about, so this second part, we're going to be talking about how do you become that body investigator? How do you find out the right combination or the strategic little things you need to put in place so that you can see the results you want to see that are right for you? Because everybody is unique, right? And everybody needs something a little bit different. But when you do this, it's a little bit of work, and by a little bit, it's work, right? But when you do this for that short period of time, 8 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, right? When you kind of figure it out, you have a good blueprint. It makes burning fat and maintaining your weight loss or your fat loss forever much, much easier. So cutting calories from this approach leads to weight loss. And my grandma, so real quick, funny story, so I'm going to get on a tangent. So I wanted to put these pictures in here because me and my grandmother, we weigh the same exact amount. We weigh about 147 pounds, okay? But our bodies are completely different. And whenever she tries to lose weight, right, she just cuts her calories because she's in that old school mentality, and she just becomes a smaller version of that body type, right? But when you attack it from balancing your metabolic hormones first, you see fat loss, and that's where you change your body shape, right? Where you have lean muscle, where, you're getting that hourglass figure that you're looking for. And sorry, I got off a tangent of my tangent, but I was looking for these photos. She'll probably kill me. Thankfully, she doesn't really know how to use the internet that well, but she unfriended me on Facebook, which I was very offended by, but I requested her again, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully it was an accident. So I don't want you to cut calories anymore, right? Or cut them super, super low. I want to teach you the right way to do that. And we're going to be talking about doing that from your metabolic hormone standpoint. So this, like I said, creates fat loss, and you lose fat, maintain the muscle. This makes for a different look, right? You're toned, you're tighter, you're not bulky, right? And I'm going to teach you exactly how to know when your hormones are getting out of whack or in whack with the next slide, right? So you can do this by listening to these 3 things, which is your energy, your cravings, and your hunger. So these are your 3 big clues to discovering the right combination for you. So when all of those things align, when you have pretty reliable energy most of the time, you're not really craving things. Like I used to crave ice cream like it was my job all the time, and you're not hungry all the time, right? These are the best indicators that you're on the right track to that sustainable body change that you're looking for, and that your hormones and your metabolism is healing and getting better into that balance, right? And like I said, this all takes discovery, this takes patience, this takes being an investigator to figure out what works for you, because it's not always going to be the same for every single person. And when you put yourself into this balance, naturally, typically, you're going to put yourself into the right calorie reduction, right, to start to see the results that you want to see. And then it's a better place to push it maybe just a little bit further with the right guidance, when, because you'll always kind of lose weight, stall, lose weight, stall, lose weight, stall. But it's a better place to start from. Okay, so energy is the first one we're going to talk about. Energy is dictated by insulin and cortisol. They're the biggest players. Okay, so we're talking about the hormone that helps you uptake and release kind of nutrients and stuff into your muscles, and into all your tissues. And then we're talking about cortisol, which is, everybody knows, is the stress hormone. So if this is unpredictable or your energy is super low all the time, first thing I want you to check is to make sure that you're not automatically putting yourself into the eat less, exercise more model by accident, just because we're so used to doing that in general, okay? The next thing I want you to look at is your protein. So how is your protein intake? We're going to talk more about protein a little bit later, but I want to make sure every single meal has an adequate amount of protein in it, as well as veggies, okay? And then the third thing I want you to look at is overall intake, okay? So are you getting enough food overall? Once again, it links back to, are you eating less again and exercising more? So those kind of go together. And then the other thing, and this is where it becomes individual for people, I want you to make sure that you haven't dropped one or both of these things too low. So that's either carbs or that's fat. Now there's some people that respond really well to carbs, so a little bit more carbs, or even a higher carb diet. And then there's some people that don't, that feel sluggish and feel like crap, right? This is something that you need to discover. Then there's people who do the same when it comes to fat, where they thrive off high fat. There's people where they don't thrive off high fat. There's people where it's got to be in the middle, right? So this is where I'm talking about that you need to take a week or 2 or 3 weeks to kind of play around with your ratios there to find out what's the perfect combination for me that makes me feel like I have a good amount of energy consistently, and especially for your training, right? And remember, we're going to talk about protein a little bit more later. The third piece, we're talking about cravings, okay? So cravings, the major factor with cravings is going to be cortisol. So that's going to be your stress, okay? And this is where you want to look to include as many stress-reducing management techniques as possible. There's a video that I've done about you can't control how much stress is in your life. for the most part, right? There is only a limit to how many people you probably can cut out and situations you can avoid. But you can, if you think of it as a cup, right, and stress is the water within that cup, maybe you're not able to decrease the water in the cup, but you're able to pour it into a bigger cup and think of that as like your management techniques. And then it feels less, even though maybe it isn't. So we want to talk about like a lot of walking, which we'll touch on again later. Anything that you really enjoy that brings you some joy, like I said, enjoy that brings you some joy, that brings you some happiness, right? That de-stresses you, helps you forget about all that other stuff, humor, yoga, watching something funny, listening to your favorite music, taking a bath, right? Those types of things. So whenever you get a craving, think, okay, I must be stressing a little bit, all right? I need to do that go-to thing that helps you relieve your stress. I know one of my clients blows bubbles, right? Which is pretty cool. And then the last piece, right? The last little feedback indicator that you're going to use is going to be hunger, okay? So if you're hungry all the time, and keep this in mind that it is okay to be a little bit hungry before each of your meals, like the hour leading up to each of your meals, whether you're eating 3 meals or 4 meals or 5 smaller meals, it's okay to be hungry up to that, like a little bit up to that, but not where you're just like kind of starving all the time. And these are because your leptin and your insulin is out of whack. So we already talked about insulin, but leptin is an appetite suppressor. So it's secreted from primarily fat hormones, and it kind of tells your body like we're good, but you can become leptin insulin resistant and all that kind of stuff. We won't get into that, but you can control these hormones by eating food, primarily most of your food being high in protein, fiber, and water content, all those three. But what I mean by water content is I mean like vegetables have a lot of water content, wet carbohydrates, so I'm talking like oats, rice, stuff like that. So you kind of want to avoid like the dry stuff like bread and pasta, things like that. And then if you're still hungry and you notice that most of your meal is primarily the protein, fiber, and it's high in water, play around with, once again, carbs or fat. And remember, this is going to depend on you. Some people are going to feel more full and satisfied with a little bit more fat. Others are going to feel more full and satisfied with a little bit of carbs. Okay, so this is where the investigation comes into play. And then with that, like I said, be curious, explore it, think of it as data, and just figure out the right way for you. And this is where I would kind of suggest, maybe seeking out a coach or a nutritional coach to help you navigate that, because sometimes it can be a little confusing with, okay, what do I do next? The third piece, the big piece that we're going to break down into 3 little pieces, is to do less to see more results. Now, this kind of sounds counterintuitive, but I'm going to break this down into 3 things. Protein intake, right? So we would touch on that a little bit later. Minimal effective dose for training, one of my favorites. And then rest, recovery, and stress reduction, which we talked about a little bit, but this is really important. So I make it sound like you're not going to have to do anything, right? But you're not going to have to do anything the old way, right? The way where you're pounding away on the treadmill, where you're, meal prepping every single thing, unless you enjoy doing that. But this approach, and this is what I kind of tell my clients before they begin, is more challenging because it requires you to learn about yourself and to be curious and to kind of take the emotion out of what's going on and use it as data to help steer you and course correct you in the right direction that matches you. It's like finding the right puzzle pieces for your body, and that's going to be different for everybody. But when you do this, right, when you figure out what works for your life forever, you're going to see the fat loss, you're going to be able to keep it up, and you're going to know what it takes next time around or pretty close to it in order to lose a little bit more weight, or say you fluctuate over the holidays, something like that. So it does take work. It's different, right? It takes a different kind of work to see this. And these 3 strategies that I'm going to share with you are a great launching point to start your kind of investigations. And it works wonders for a lot of women. But remember, you have to explore how exactly it's going to fit for you. So first thing we're talking about is protein, right? We already know it's super important to make sure that our energies are great. We're not having crazy, cravings all the time. So we want to increase our intake of protein-rich foods. We talked about already that I want every single meal, every single snack, right, to have a good amount of protein in it. So you can use your palm. I don't know if you follow a lot of my stuff on Facebook, but there's a video, I think there's a couple different infographics about using your palm to help you decide how much protein should be on your plate, and that's right for your body. It's the highest in TEF, which means thermal effective food. So this basically kickstarts your metabolism just by digesting it. And also, you're not going to actually be able to digest about 25% of it once you take it in, right? So you can put yourself into a natural calorie reduction by eating more food if you include more protein. It's going to help you stay fuller longer. And its big one is going to help you maintain muscle, especially if you're on a little bit more of a calorie deficit and you're leaning towards fat loss. Because what happens, remember, that survival mode, it's going to want to take muscle because it's expensive. It uses a lot of energy before fat, because remember, we're an organism. So we want to give it everything that it possibly needs to be like, no, we need this. Here's the building blocks. Don't break it down, because your body is run, your metabolism, the main engine of it is muscle. So when you lose muscle, you lose calorie burning power. And this is also what kind of bites people in the butt in the long run when it comes to those eat less, exercise more models, because they're losing a lot of muscle. They're dropping their daily, metabolic burn or their metabolic rate way low. They go off of it and boom, a couple weeks later, they're back where they started. So include lots of different protein. If you need help with that, let me know. I'll give you some good options. Second piece of doing less to see more results. Minimal effective dose. One of my favorite things to talk about. So you're probably thinking, or you've probably done, listen, if I want to burn more calories, if I want to see fat loss, if I want to get the body that I want, don't I have to do more work, right? Don't I have to train more? Don't I have to, drive myself crazy, run crazy on the treadmill, do cardio, all this different stuff? But let me ask you, right? I want you to think back to when the last time you got a prescription by a doctor, right? A prescribed prescription from a doctor, and he told you, I want you to take one pill at lunch with water every day until your prescription's done, right? And what did you do? I would hope that you went and you took one pill at lunch with water every day, or at least, around lunch, somewhere around there. And they do this on purpose because this is the minimal effective dose. This is the dose that's going to give you the best impact, the desired results without negative effects or overdose, okay? But then what do we do when it comes to exercise and training? We do the complete opposite. But even though this idea is the same, especially when it comes to the female hormones and the female makeup, we get told, I want you to train 3 or 4 times a week, do primarily strength training, eat this, sleep this much. Okay, you got that? And then you go home and you're like, well, if I train 6 days a week and if I drop my calories 200 more than what my fitness pal is telling me, and if I do this and I do this and I do this, then won't it be worse? Won't it be better? Won't it get me where I want to be? But it doesn't work like that, right? You're essentially, I don't want to say overdosing, but you're now creating negative effects, because what you don't realize is all that stuff is a stressor on your body, right? So when you work harder versus smarter, you increase your stress levels, which then, you get your hormones out of whack. Remember, hormones are going to drive our metabolism. Energy cravings, hunger go through the roof. You're trying to white knuckle, willpower through it. You get mentally fatigued. You start to make poor food choices. Everything else starts to break down because you're tired. You might get injured, and then eventually burn out. You give up, and you're like, I'm done with this, right? Until the next time, until the New Year's resolution, right? So instead of that, I want you to think about working smarter versus harder. And when you do this, right, you're going to manage your stress. I want to make sure you're recovering. You're going to get optimal. You're going to optimize your hormones. You'll get the most bang for your buck in general, right? So you'll be pushing this round ball instead of these square cubes across the ground. And you're going to have a lot more energy, and you're not going to be overwhelmed, right? So when all those things are in check, your hormones, your metabolism is in check. And this is what I mean by you don't want to do too much that it starts to work against you. You want to do just enough to get that maximum effect from that minimal dose, right? So what does that look like when it comes to training? Because a lot of times, right, we'll be pounding away on the treadmill. We'll be, going to crazy CrossFit classes and then running on the boardwalk and then doing all this crazy stuff. So I want you to think strength training. So strength training, if everybody asks me what's the best thing that I should be doing for fat loss, and I'm like, you need to strength train, right? Because if you put a little bit more muscle on your body, or at least you're able to maintain the muscle that you have during a fat loss phase, you're going to be way better off than if half of the weight you lost comes from muscle, because your metabolism is going to go to the basement, okay? So 2 to 3 times a week. Now, this kind of depends on your age and your recovery, and once again, this kind of takes discovery on your part. Then maybe 1 time to 2 times a week, you're doing a rest-based high intensity metabolic training. So basically what I want most women to do is to go as hard as you can for 15 to maybe 30 seconds, then rest completely for as long as you need to, right? Whether that's 15 seconds, whether that's 5 minutes, right? But I want you to rest until you feel like you can go really, really hard again, and then you're gonna do it again. You're gonna put about 20 minutes on the clock, and you're just gonna go as many rounds as you can in that format for those 20 minutes. Now, I shared how exactly to do that correctly on my Facebook, so if you need more information about that, I would check that out. I shared that today. And the last thing I want you to do is I want you to walk, right? I just want you to do general movement. Our body was meant to move. It wasn't meant to sit at a desk or behind a steering wheel or a computer or to lay in bed all day, right? It was meant to like move around, and not the type of moving that causes us to get out of breath, right? The type of moving where it's just as a part of living, right? Not only does this kind of decrease stress, but this helps to burn a little bit of extra calories as well, okay? Female fat loss in general is more about strength, about stress management. I thought I said strength training, which is true too. About strength, why do I keep saying it's more about stress management than diet and exercise? And this is especially true if you feel like you suffer from belly fat, or if you feel like your body's starting to change and it's not placing fat where it used to anymore, and now it's all going to your stomach. So remember those things, to work smarter, not harder, and to keep the minimal effective dose in effect at all times, okay? So rest and recovery, that's why we're leading into this third one, right? Remember, this is one of the biggest pieces when it comes to women, especially those who are around 35 or older. Women are more sensitive to stress than men, especially at this age, right? And especially at that age and older. And being on a chronically low-calorie diet, exercising too much, doing too much running, too much cardio, where your heart is like racing, is a major stressor on the body. So not only is your life could be super stressed out, but now you're adding this onto your plate too, and it's no wonder why you're not getting anywhere, is because all of your hormones, your cortisol, your hunger, your cravings, all getting out of whack. So I want to make sure that you're not pushing against your metabolism, that you're not having your metabolism fight against you, right? So this chronic stress causes fat gain, like we talked about. So managing and reducing it is crucial, right? Especially when you want to see the fat loss where you want, not just weight loss where you're just a smaller version of a shape that you don't exactly want, but a more feminine shape that maybe you're kind of after, right? So chronic stress, it lowers, is a mix, especially with a mix of high insulin, low testosterone, and low HGH, so human growth hormone, which basically kind of is our life. We're always in chronic stress, and then you mix that stuff into it from training too much and not eating enough, is a recipe for disaster. And the other thing about this that people don't realize, and sometimes they like blame themselves for not having enough willpower or whatever that is, that whole chronic stress scenario affects our motivation. It affects literally our brain. So the goal-oriented centers, like where motivation comes from to do, long-term type goals like weight loss or going to the gym because it makes us feel good, get turned way down. While the reward centers get turned way up, meaning like the instant reward. So that's when we're like, I just want to lay in bed and watch Real Housewives, right? Or I just want to, eat ice cream. I don't want to go to the gym, right? And that's another way that it really kind of works against us. So really prioritize rest, recovery, and stress reduction as much as you possibly can. So instead of thinking about from the bottom up is exercise or is nutrition, exercise, and stress, I want you to think stress, nutrition, exercise at the top, okay? So we're talking about getting enough sleep. A lot of people, you're going to probably be like, I can't believe she said that, but would be better off an hour extra taking a nap than an hour extra running on the treadmill or walking at a really, really fast pace on the treadmill, okay? So walk outside, right? Relieve your stress, listen to music, take a bath, right? Do stuff like that, meditate, that lowers or helps you manage your stress and doesn't require food to kind of give you those good feelings. And the great thing about all those things is that it helps to optimize your hormones, right? Because it's lowering your cortisol, it controls that, and it gets your body back into that balance that you want to see. So this is Tara. Tara basically was experiencing all of that kind of stress that we were talking about. She's extremely busy, She has two young girls she takes care of. She runs a demanding online business at her house, of course, while she's taking care of everybody else, making sure there's food on the table when her husband gets home. And she kind of came convinced that the eat less, exercise more model kind of was the way. It's how she always did it. That's, how she was going to get the results now. But, we began working together, and I found out that she would forget to eat, or she would skip meals, and she would do this, fasting a couple times a week. And together I kind of helped her, take a step back to learn to recover and especially eat a little bit more. I was only able to kind of tailor her training a little bit less than what she was doing at 3 to 4 days a week. But in the end of 8 weeks, she ended up losing 6 pounds, which people are like, I'm not impressed, but 10 inches. So if you take a really close look at her before and after, you'll see her middle has completely changed. The shape of her abdomen has changed in just 8 weeks. And I also included this picture because the scale doesn't always tell the whole picture, right? Her body looks dramatically different, even though the scale told her 6 pounds. So if you're looking at the scale and you're like, oh my gosh, I only lost a pound, it's not giving you the whole picture. Like, your body could completely be shifting around and changing, and your clothes could be fitting so much better, but because you're so trained to look at the scale at that magic number that so many women have, you end up giving up even though you might be on the right track, okay? So listen, you don't deserve to feel the way that you do, right? Because if you were like Tyra, or if you were like I was, where you feel like you've done everything, you've tried everything, you work out really, really hard, you're eating better than you ever have, or maybe you're eating worse and you're just frustrated, hopefully this has kind of helped you to see that eating less and exercising more is the hard way, right? Is the way that often backfires, is the way that, for whatever, I don't even know where that came from. Oh, I forgot. The research that has been done on men, because it works for guys, but has been pushed onto us, is the hard way to kind of fit into that pair of our favorite genes, to get our metabolism on our side, and to feel, more importantly, the way that we want to feel again. And thank you so very much for being here. I have a couple more slides because just for being here, I want to, ask you or see if you would like to join the next group that I'm starting on the 18th. But already we've covered a lot of information. I'm sorry, it's a little bit longer. It's about 40 minutes, but we talked about metabolism, our hormones, training, energy, cravings, hunger, and that's just the surface, right? So if you could just implement one thing today, because I know it was a lot of information, just one big thing that stuck out to you and actually put it into play, you'll be better off than trying to put all of them into play right away on your own. Okay, so I hope that you would agree that this was time well spent. I know I ate up a little bit more time than you were expecting, but only thing that is left to do is I want to invite you right to the program that can teach you everything that you need to know if you're ready. Okay, so if you're ready, there's a 12-week nutritional course and coaching program that's going to show you the step-to-step kind of shifts that you need to make in order to see the success that some of the stories that I've shared have seen. And this is a nutritional course with a coach, me, to help you exactly figure out and navigate those things, right? Because remember, it's a different type of work to get there, but once you do that work to begin with, you never have to really worry about it again, okay? So this program is only for women that are ready to put down those quick fixes and those gimmicks and are ready for lifelong fat loss, right? For to be done with that stuff. So if you're ready to make a lasting change, I have a link down below. You can schedule a quick call, even if you're just curious about it, even if you're not sure, schedule it and we can talk about it. If I can't help you, then I'll just point you in a direction where I think, someone better can, okay? So this program has worked for a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, people who felt like they had no time, women who felt like they were broken because their metabolism was broken because they dieted way too hard. People who think they have stubborn genetics, right? They're like, well, my genetics are the worst. Women who are in menopause right now and are convinced that your body is out to get you. I hear this sometimes too. Women who think that they're too fat or too big right now, that you need to get in shape, quote unquote, and then do this approach and then do this program. Once I convince them, they see dramatic results. And, people who've tried everything, and this is specifically for people who are ready and committed for a lasting permanent change. So this is Sue. And this was exactly where Sue was. So Sue had done kind of like the quicker fixes. She had done a little bit of the longer fixes where, she would join a gym and she would train And at one point, she kind of told herself, I'm going to lose all this weight and I'm going to train for a marathon. And that's the way that I'm going to, lose the weight that I want to lose. And she did, and she lost a lot of weight. But then she kind of gained it all back very shortly after. And so she came to me, right? She was training at Blackburn Training Center, loving the training there, but she knew that she needed to figure out her relationship with food and how to kind of merge the two together. And she was ready to make that sustainable change. She was done yo-yoing, right? So in 8 weeks, she lost 11 pounds and 10 inches, okay? But the most amazing part about this is after the tools that I taught her and the skills that she implemented, she went on to lose 15 more pounds on her own, right? And only a few short months later. So I got to get another after picture, but whenever I ask her about it, she's always just like, dude, I don't know. It just seems so simple. Like, I figured out what works, and because it's easy, I don't have to think about it, and I just do it as second nature, right? In the beginning, it was work, but now it's super easy. So the results speak for themselves. Top left, that's my girl Kelly. She lost over 100 pounds and has been able to keep those same 100 pounds off for years now, which is fantastic. If you guys have ever heard about the whole Biggest Loser study that they did. And then, listen, I get it. You're probably like, dude, I don't know. I'm nervous. It might be too expensive. I'm just going to fail at this too. Or maybe you're just not sure an online coaching system. You're just not sure how that works. Like, how the heck can she deliver the value that I need if I'm not seeing her one-on-one? But my goal and my passion, I hope that has come across a little bit, is to help women feel incredible about them, because that's how I feel that I can make the biggest impact in a positive way on this planet, right? I believe that if each of us are confident and we fully are, have all the self-esteem that we need, and we fully own our power and our ability, that we all can make this place so much better. So I'm not here to rob you and then promise you the moon without delivering on my end, because this is a coaching program that requires both of us to hold, our ends of the deal. And the beauty of being in this online virtual space is that I can be by your side whenever you absolutely need me, right? Instead of just walking to the gym 3 hours a week and maybe an occasional text, right? I'm there every day to encourage you, to teach you, to, if you need help somewhere, if you're struggling, right, you reach out, and whether it's a call or a text or a video conference, right, I'm there to help you every step of the way. So even if you're just curious, just go ahead and reserve that. And like I said, if I'm not sure I could help you, I'll point you in the direction of someone who can, okay? So click that link. There's a little information thing, and then you can book your call right away, and then I'll call you in the next 24 hours. So last thing in closing, right, these are a couple more of the before and afters that I have, and I can't put them all here, but the thing that I love the most is seeing how confident and different they look after this program. And my favorite is down here in the right. This is Judy. Judy is amazing. And in her before picture, right, she was wearing baggier clothes. She wore baggy pants, loafers, whatever. She still looked good. But in her after photo, you could just see that, I think she lost about 16 pounds in 8 weeks and a bunch of inches. She just felt better about her, and she has this sassy little V-neck on, or sassy little boots, and it's amazing, right? So I love to see that smile on her face, and that's what I'm after, is to help people feel really, really confident and to improve their self-esteem. So click that link if you're interested, right, if you're ready to finally make it a real change, and you know that this is the time, right? That this fall is the time to make it happen, so you don't have to wait for another New Year's resolution. So thank you so, so very much. I know this went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I get really excited. I get passionate. I just start talking, and I can't stop. I'm sorry, guys. But thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stay on here a little bit longer and just see if I have any comments at all. And tell me that this didn't work again. Oh, guys, were you not able to see all of that? Oh no. I can't believe it. This is I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm going to record another one, and I will send it to you. And that'll be that. But yeah, like I said, if you are interested, please let me know. I'll send you this replay. Hope you guys have a great night. One of these days, I'm gonna get this webinar thing down, and yeah, we're just gonna make that happen. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.